Morning, Jim. We'll get started with Paul Domilich and then John McMullen.
Hey, Jim. Good morning.
Hey, guys.
Hey, last time we spoke, you talked about your linebacker group as a whole. I wanted to ask you specifically about the three rookies you have in that group, how they're progressing, particularly Davion. I mean, it's early, I realize that, but do you see him being able to make enough progress to contribute more than just on special teams for you this year?
Well, that's yet to be seen. I will say this, that linebacker and safety are two of the most difficult positions for guys to get up to speed with. That's including having a full off-season program for rookies, OTAs, mini camp, and a full preseason schedule and preseason games. So their learning has to be accelerated. Both of those guys, or all three of those guys, are smart guys and have adapted well. Now it's just a matter of accumulating as many reps as we can get. And when we do have those heavy contact practices, those are going to be really important in our evaluations. There's no grading on the curve for this. It can't be, well, it's week 7, a guy has to play, or it's week 2, a guy has to play, or, week 16 and a guy has to play. And, sorry, he didn't have any training camp, so we can't expect much of him. Our job's to get those guys ready, and we have confidence in those guys. Those guys are working hard, and they're really good athletes, and feel good about their prospects.
John, and then Jimmy.
Hey, Jim. Good morning. Wanted to get your thoughts a little bit on Darius Slay. Carson was talking about him yesterday, and he mentioned he was different. And what are when you look at an opposing quarterback who's kind of looking at a corner and saying he's different and I realize he's there, what are some of the traits that makes him that way?
Well, I'd say first is experience. This is not his first rodeo. He's been a proven player in this league, has a long track record, has a lot of experience matching different kinds of receivers. He's played against, a whole range of different guys. So I think that's probably the first thing, when you're a quarterback and you go out to practice, and there's a guy that you've seen on film for 4 years, and you've seen him on opponent film, and you've seen him, defend different wide receivers. I think that respect goes a long way, so there's some familiarity there. But, just, a guy that knows his job technique-wise, that has a nose for the football. Those are things that a quarterback is going to be concerned about when it comes to throwing to a particular receiver.
Jimmy, and then Dave Zingaro.
Yeah, Dave, you can go. Jim already answered my question.
Okay.
Wow, that was good. I get to double up on more. I don't have to sit in this. This room, by the way, looks like I'm on a scene from Zero Dark 30. I got lights in my face. We got a camera. I mean, I feel like I gotta either start blinking or I gotta start reading a message. From terrorists or something.
Got to hold up today's newspaper, Jim.
Yeah, proof of life.
Before you said that the cornerback spot opposite Darius is an open competition, but with the limited time, is there enough time for that open competition? And you're going to mix in different players. We saw Vontae there yesterday.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of different players. I mean, obviously, when you look at a guy like Slay, or you look at a Rodney McLeod, or Fletcher Cox, or Brandon Graham, you're going to have a good idea that they're going to be out there in week 1. But we're gonna match a lot of different combinations, and there's going to be some days, just because of our accelerated camp, there's going to be some guys that have days off, so you'll see some guys in there. We've seen the last few years how important it is to plug players in and still have a level of success. So we've always tried to do that during training camp anyway, just sort of, throw different groups out there and mix and match guys. Number one, to be able to see players against different competitions, so you're not sort of working against the same guys all training camp. But number two, just to have a comfort level with the other guys that are out there. So we'll do that for a lot of different reasons, not just competition. But we'll have plenty of time for competition, and Coach Peterson has given us some good opportunities to get some it's not quite game situations, but as close as we can simulate, and we'll have a good chance to get everybody an opportunity and be able to make decisions, in a few weeks.
Jeff and then Kristen.
Jim, last time you spoke, you weren't asked about Derek Barnett, but we spoke to a few players and coaches about him, and they were saying how he seemed, coming in healthy for the first time seemed to be good for him, clearly. But here we are in the first week of camp, or at least padded practices, and he's back on the DL with a week-to-week injury. Is there some correlation between his size? I guess he would say he's probably on the smaller side for that position, and the injuries that he's gotten over the last several years.
No, I think the injuries he's had haven't been related to that. I've had a lot of really big guys that have had injuries there too. It's a physical game. It's a physical position. Defensive tackle and defensive end, I think, are the only positions that make contact with somebody on every single play. I mean, you can be an offensive guard, and it's pass protection, and there's nobody over you, and you can sort of just sit there, and you might not have contact with somebody. But defensive tackles, defensive ends take a load every play, whether you're 350 pounds or 250 pounds. There's a toll that comes, and Derek plays so hard and plays so wide open. He doesn't. He doesn't take any plays off. I still am very pleased with where Derek is, and I think he's going to have an outstanding year this year.
Go ahead, Kristen, and then Mike K.
Hey, Jim, hope you're doing well. Obviously, with no preseason games, it's kind of, you touched on it, but it's different to evaluate where the rookies are right now. Can you take us through what it's like having to split those reps in your approach? Because you also need the veterans to be ready for week one while also trying to evaluate the younger guys that you have.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we do have sort of two concurrent agendas in training camp, and we're sort of almost in a game prep type week, trying to get guys ready for Washington. And then also we're trying to develop players, and we're trying to also evaluate players. So one hand, we're really driving toward, we're only a few weeks away from going and playing a game for real. And then on the other end, we have guys that are basically brand new that we need to find out as much as we can. I think Coach Peterson's done a really good job of mixing different periods in practice that way. We have some periods that are very specific toward trying to get a group that's already experienced ready to play. And then we have enough other periods where, where we can see guys and evaluate and develop. I think it's going to be an ongoing thing this year. I mean, an abbreviated training camp isn't going to be the end of our developmental program. You're going to see some stuff early in the season where we get some younger guys a lot more work maybe than they would in previous years. It reminds me a lot of 2011. 2011, there was a lockout year. We started a little bit late. Now, we had all those preseason games, but we were on a little bit of an abbreviated schedule, and we were able to get everything in.
Mike and then Les.
Jim, last year in early press conference and training camp, you brought up how Hassan Ridgeway was a new guy that kind of got in the system and impressed you right away. Who's the new guy this year that's kind of acclimated themselves pretty quickly and impressed you?
Too early to say. Yesterday was the first day with pads, and it really wasn't a competitive period. In Coach Peterson's terms, it was a 10-10-10. You guys that saw that, even though it probably looked very competitive, it really wasn't a true evaluation kind of thing. It was always just one of those, the first day of pads. Coach has always taken that approach of, not throwing red meat out there for those guys the very first day. So let's just reserve judgment on guys that require pads and, to truly evaluate them. Let's give them this first week, and then maybe I'll be able to better answer that question. Maybe this time next week.
Les and then Zach.
Hi, Jim.
Hey.
We've been talking for a good while now about this defensive tackle rotation, theoretically, and last year, of course, Malik went down first game. Now you're preparing for the season without Javon Hargrave. Are you ever going to get what you're looking for here? And with Javon, does he play a position where maybe it's easier for him to get ready for the season without reps in terms of scheme and so forth, the complexity of what he does, than say if he were a safety or a linebacker or something?
Well, yeah, I'll just start there. First, Javon is a experienced player, and generally when those guys come in, they're not learning how to play football. They're learning the way you play, and it's more terminology and things like that. So young vets tend to get up to speed really quickly, when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I think there are some positions that just by the nature of their position it's a little easier to plug, particularly young players in. Defensive line, outside corner. I already mentioned, safeties and linebackers, and particularly with where offenses go, with the complexity of offense, with all these jet sweeps and distractions and zone reads and RPOs and all that stuff that builds into it, things change really fast. It used to change because a guy would sort of trot across half speed in motion and you had to go from one thing to another. Now that same guy is going in motion and it looks like the start of the 100-meter dash in the Olympics, and you have to go super, super fast. So, D-line doesn't necessarily have those kind of complexities. It's more of a physical game for those guys up there. We're not super complicated when it comes to those guys. So it will be. I think it'll be an easier transition for a guy like Jay. We'll see where we get with those guys. Injuries are a part of the game. We've seen it. We've had to deal with it. You can have a plan, but Mike Tyson was famous for his saying about plans. So you better have a plan B, and you better be ready for how it goes, because it's just a matter of time before things don't go to plan over the course of the year. But teams that can balance those things and find a way to still be competitive and still have success, those are teams that are going to be rewarded at the end of the year.
We got time for one more. Go ahead, Zach.
Hey, Jim, since we spoke to you last, you signed Vinny Curry. Does Vinny take on the same role he had last year? And if so, how does that affect the development and potential playing time of these young edge rushers like Sweat, Avery, and Miller that you've spent time developing?
Yeah, I think Vinny had an outstanding year for us last year, one of his best. So it was good to get him back. He's a veteran player that, we talked about some of these young guys needing all these reps and everything. Vinny's a guy that needs to get ready, doesn't quite need as many reps. So I don't think it'll hurt the development of the younger guys. You're not going to find a coach that says more good players is a bad situation. So, we added a good player, a trusted player in our scheme, a guy that's had success in our scheme, a guy that means a lot to our locker room and to our spirit. So we added a guy like that. I see that as a bonus. It's not going to take away from the development of those younger guys.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks, everybody.
Great T-shirt's a bad idea, huh?
That's fine.
Do I just disappear in the? I guess.
No, you're good.
I guess my thing right there. Yeah. All right, guys.
Thanks,
we'll see you out on the practice field.